Welcome to the Professionally Evil Perspective. I'm Nathan Swaney.
I'm Kevin Johnson.
Are you sure about that?
No,
you always
I'm
pause
not.
every time. You're like, crap, what's my name again?
I changed it, remember?
That's true. That's true.
I mean, it was
Like 40 years
31
ago.
years ago I changed it, but it's still, I have to think.
All right, Kevin, I have a surprise topic for you. Sort of a surprise. It's not
Sort
really
of.
that much of a surprise.
This
So,
is for everybody who is
the third chair. Call him the third chair.
Yeah, the 2.5 of you.
Yeah.
Nathan had this great idea that he came up with a topic that he was going to surprise me with. And the idea would be, hey, we're going to talk about this and we'll get Kevin's reaction, blind reaction to it. And I honestly thought it was going to be a trap, that he was like, we we're going to join and he was going to have, my parents here or something. And
that would be horrible.
It would be, especially since I don't talk to either of them and never want to. I've always said the wrong in-laws died. But but we did the recording, and he surprised me.
No. We talked about it.
You're right. We got on here, and we talked for, I think we talked for like half an hour. It was a really great conversation.
It was at least 20 minutes. It was the best podcast we've ever done.
Ever will. And somebody, we won't say it was Nathan, forgot to hit record. And I will also point out that Kathy and Kevin also forgot to notice that we weren't recording.
Yeah.
It was bad.
It was bad. All right, so let me set the stage again. We'll call this take two. We'll hopefully it's half as good as last time.
I'll act surprised.
You'll act surprised. All right, thanks. All right, so I just posted a link. Let me set up the stage here. This link that I just posted to you is the source code for a botnet. And what this is, it's a group that has put this out saying, hey, join our botnet, add your computers, whatever, and we are all going to work together to attack Russia, right? This is a glory to Ukraine, stop the war, stop the effing invaders, all that. And so there's a group that says, you don't have to attack people, just give us control of your machines and we'll attack them for you. What I found most interesting about this is the place that I stumbled on it was an IT group on Facebook that, I jump on there for the memes. There's funny stuff. Ha ha ha. A lot of people ranting about, there's a lot of people ranting about users and blah, blah, blah. Well, somebody was posting this saying, hey, if you have access to computer labs or conference rooms or computers that aren't being used on a regular basis, install this botnet so that you can help fight for Ukraine and just give us control and we'll take care of it.
You can feel like you're part of it. And
exactly.
Yeah.
I'll just throw it back at you, Kevin. What could possibly go wrong with that?
Nothing could ever go wrong with giving your resources to a random person on the internet and asking them to commit illegal acts in your name. See, this is one of those ones, and we've talked about this before. We've talked about ethics. We've talked about morals. We've talked about how hypocritical I may or may not be. This is one of those ones that I'm very, very torn on.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I'm going to shift the talk because I don't believe that any reasonable person would look at what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia and think, man, Russia's on the side of good. Nobody could think that, right? Yeah. I'm aware that every single person here has an Uncle Ted that is posting on Facebook how bad the Ukraine is and what Russia is doing is right, because we all have that Uncle Ted, right? That guy needs to be punched in the throat. But I look at it and I go, yeah, this is an easy answer. And we talked about this previously. I don't think we were on a podcast. You and I talked about it previously, that what happened with Russia invading the Ukraine and Putin doing it was we gave an entire world of people who have been fighting over whether or not COVID is real or birds or government drones or the earth is flat. We were all given an unambiguous bad person that we could all hate on together, whether we were vegan or conservative or
CrossFitters.
I'm sorry?
CrossFitters.
Or CrossFitters, right? Yeah. Do you know how to find out if somebody's a CrossFitter? Wait a minute, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
And like an unambiguous evil person, right? Like, we can all hate on this person. And anybody who doesn't hate on it, we know they're just either a troll or a bot or an idiot. And
Yeah.
but let's take it out of that, right? Like
Yeah.
I believe in the ability of free speech. I believe in following the rules, following the law, doing all that kind of stuff. But I also believe that any self-identified Nazi should be punched in the throat. If you're a self-identified Nazi, you should be punched in the throat. And I've gotten in trouble on Twitter with people like, "Oh, Kevin, you're professing violence." Yes, I am. I believe
Okay.
Putin should be punched
Okay.
in the throat. But
Okay, Will
here's the
Smith.
thing. I'm sorry.
Okay, Will Smith.
I'm not Will Smith. He didn't punch Chris Rock in the throat.
Oh, okay. It was an open-handed slap.
Whatever. I think that attacking other people is bad. I also think that helping right a wrong or do whatever is good. And sometimes to do good, you have to do bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting that you take it there. There's a long tradition that grew up in Western culture. I'm not as familiar with Eastern culture, but in a Western Judeo-Christian culture, there's the tradition of just war.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of philosophical conversation about how do you define a just war? When is it acceptable or not? Because effectively what we're talking about is legalized killing,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
It's justified to kill this person because of this thing. I actually just had this conversation with my kids the other day. My 8-year-old daughter said, "Daddy, what are taxes?" I said, "All right."
Theft.
I said, it's legalized theft. And everybody else at the table was like, "What?" And I was like, well, think about it. If a group of people took one person's money to fund something that person didn't want to do, that would be called theft. But if we all agree on it and we legalize it, now we call it taxes.
Right.
It's sort of the same concept. If one person kills somebody for doing something bad, it's murder. If we all agree that it's okay for them to kill it, now we call it justice. Right. So
yeah, I find this funny because I literally just had this conversation with my youngest daughter, who is 15, not 8, that taxation is theft. And I was laughing because I said to her, I'm not doing the meme that people like, I'm not a hardcore libertarian. I actually believe that some theft is okay.
Oh, absolutely. We all agree with that.
Reasonable taxes. That doesn't change the definition of taxation as theft. It's just, I'm accepting that theft. I'm okay with that one.
I think people, and I think this applies to where we're going with the conversation. People get stuck on the legal definition. Well, it's not theft because theft is this. Well, no. Okay. Step aside from the legal. Let's talk about the ethical side. And the reason I think that applies here is when we're talking about international law, which is kind of a oxymoron, right? When we have two nations or multiple nations involved in this situation where people from one nation are attacking people from another nation because they attacked people from another nation, I don't know that the law still applies.
Yeah.
Does it?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know where things work, right? Like, so for example, Putin and Russia are saying, well, we're invading to denazify or something, whatever.
Right. We're saving the Ukrainians from their government. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. And so if you believe that is true, let's ignore the idiocy of the statement. Let's act for a second as if it's true. Then his invasion could fall under the definition of a just war, and we would support it, right? We would have supported, I would hope, we would have supported Britain invading Germany to prevent Hitler from killing Jews, right? Like, obviously we wouldn't have since we turned them away at the coast, but let's not go there, right? But so if the Ukraine wins and gets Russia out and then decides to keep going, would that be a just war? I don't know. And so then let's bring it back to the topic we were talking about. Does that make it okay to add your... And I made the comment yesterday that this is like SETI at home for hackers, right? For hacking, right?
Yeah, effectively.
Is it okay to add yourself to the botnet to do this? And now we start running into, okay, one, is it legal? You brought up yesterday when we didn't record it, but I want to give you credit for the statement, right? You brought up yesterday that, in some countries it is absolutely legal to attack.
Yeah.
things.
I
Or I
want to
guess
set
we should say not that it's absolutely legal. It's not
not
illegal.
illegal. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I want to set up one exception because I think it's easy for people to get lost in like, well, if you control a computer lab but you don't own them, you don't really have the authorization to do that. Absolutely fair. In
Yeah.
that sort of situation, I think it's a clear ethical boundary.
Yeah.
If you don't have authorization to do this, you can't do it. But assuming that you have the authorization, right? If we owned a fleet of 1,000 computers, and as the business owner, you said we're going to participate in this, we have the authorization. Now there's questions about, are we violating terms of services or our ISPs limitations or, stuff like that. But assuming that we're not, then that, to me, that's where the interesting ethical dilemma comes in of, I don't know. I think it's a challenging consideration.
And if I may, right, I think we should talk about, right, what about, and I'm very US centric in this conversation because I know the US laws, right?
Sure.
Not that they're the better ones or best ones or whatever, just I know them. Then we start talking about is it okay to do hacking back? Is attacking fine? Are we allowed to? And I heard years and years and years ago, I had a very interesting conversation. Mike Poore was one of the people in the conversation. I don't remember if you were part of that conversation back then. This obviously was before Secure Ideas was a company. We were talking about the idea at that time, whoever was president had basically announced that the U.S. believed that cyber attacks were a weapon of mass destruction.
I remember that. Yeah.
And as a weapon of mass destruction, if somebody did a cyber attack, the U.S. military might was allowed to attack back. Yeah. And at the time, the only approved attacks that were publicly known, we got to clarify that way, were kinetic weapons.
Yeah.
For the people who don't know, bombs, bullets, things that hit, right? Like, so basically the idea was that if you did a cyber attack, the U.S., and you used a weapon of mass destruction, which they considered a cyber attack, they could use a weapon of mass destruction back at you, and their choice was a nuclear weapon. So the U.S. was allowed to nuke a country if they attacked. I know I'm exaggerating and simplifying and all that kind of stuff right here, but that's how it was. And which then brought up the conversation.
So yep. Real quick before you get to that conversation, a little bit of the history there. That was under President Obama.
I believe it was, yeah.
What was interesting was that came up as part of the conversation, if I remember correctly, part of the conversations with the sanctions against Iran of, we're going to influence Iranian people, blah, blah, blah. And if Iran attacks us back like this, what I always found interesting was while that was being said, we had spent the last 4 or 5 years developing Stuxnet. So
theoretically developing Stuxnet.
I believe it's been proven beyond,
Nope. It's not been proven beyond a doubt. It's a conspiracy theory, whatever.
But yes, to go back to your point about the conversation with Mike.
Yeah. So, okay, if that means, in my understanding, and my Facebook law degree tells me I'm right, that means that the U.S. had classified hacking tools as weapons.
Yeah.
Which means that under the Second Amendment and Castle Doctrine, if we combine those two things, hacking back is allowed.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
potentially. Well,
principle. I know we can.
There's a lot of complexity there.
Oh, of course there is. Right.
I had a friend of mine was a U.S. congressman for several years, and back, I'm trying to remember the time frame here. I want to say it was 2015, 2014, somewhere in that range, when they were talking about passing legislation to allow attacking back. Do you remember that? I don't know that the legislation ever passed, but there was conversations about it.
Yeah, I don't even think it ever got to a point where a committee looked at it. If I remember,
I think it did. I think it got up a little higher than expected.
Maybe,
but the argument for it that surprised me was that it's already happening. That the U.S. employs third-party contractors to hack back against nation states, and most of the time it's companies that don't even know they've been compromised that are being used as staging grounds, right?
Yeah.
So we are already doing this, and the law of it is questionable. And the folks that were promoting that legislation were some of these DoD contractors who said, "Hey, we're kind of skirting the edges of the law here. We're doing it with authorization, but if we, if there's ever pushback, we could get in trouble. So we want to just be clear that this is legal and upfront." And so that was his argument: is like, this is not about legalize or making it happen. It's already happening. We just want to make it legal.
That goes down the idea of, right, if you pass a law that nobody's following, right? Like,
Yeah. What's the point?
What's the point of having a law that nobody's following? The law should be adjusted to what the community, the situation, right? We should match what people are doing.
The problem with that is, where do you draw the line? So if
on a notepad,
point to point,
between 2 points. That's the whole point of that's the definition of a line.
No, that's a line segment. A line goes from infinity to infinity.
You're right.
I know. Geometry. I don't know much, but I learned geometry well. So in this situation with this botnet we were talking about, there's I think two places where they say they gather targets. One is the I lost it. The IT. It's like the IT Army of Ukraine 2022 is what their name is, and they've got a Discord channel, and they've got I can't even remember some other social network they're using to gather stuff. But then they also have a closed group of anonymous members who provide high value targets.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it yesterday. It was all in, I'm assuming it was Ukrainian. It might've been Russian. I'm not sure, but a language I didn't understand. I had to translate a lot of it. They were providing their targets, which were mostly financial institutions within Russia. And so they were saying, like, hey, if you're part of this botnet, they're publicly saying, here's who we're going to be attacking today. And they're putting it out there. But I don't remember seeing any of the targets as actual Russian agencies, right? It was not the government. It was not the military. It was the people. And we talked about that a little bit, about just the, attacking people to influence the government.
We always have the issue, right? Everything from the idea of protest, right? I want to protest something, so I'm going to block roads, right?
Stop traffic, people. Yeah.
The whole point of a sit-in is to inconvenience the people you want to influence, right? I think I said that right. And so we can argue whether or not that's good, bad, whatever, but that's the point. So
sure.
It's the same thing. I believe you said it yesterday. That's the idea of sanctions, right? You pass sanctions. Most sanctions don't impact completely the person pulling the trigger, the person ordering the rule.
The government has enough resources to get what they want. Right. It's the people that...
It's the people. You're hoping they will come in and stand up and rise up or whatever. Here's what I think. I think attacking people is bad. I also think that turning over control of your system to a random person on the internet to allow them to attack people is a bad idea.
Yeah.
I also personally lean toward the idea that attacking Russia would be okay.
I know.
That's where I'm in a mixed up position.
It is. Yeah.
My example at the beginning was exactly my example now. If I see somebody standing on the side of the street claiming to be a Nazi and screaming Nazi stuff, I hope that I punch them in the throat. I hope that I stand up to my opinion and I punch them in the throat. I've punched Nazis before. I hope I would continue to do it. Right?
Can I suggest, if you have a Secure Idea shirt on,
take it off.
Change clothes. Take it off before you do that.
Yeah. But if there is somebody professing Nazi beliefs, I hope that I continue, as I have in the past, to assault that. I recognize 100%. I run the risk of being arrested. I run the risk of going to jail. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And but if somebody is standing on the side of the road yelling about Trump or Biden or whatever, I wouldn't punch them in the throat. Not because I agree with them. And notice I said both sides there. Right? I don't like either of the two. I obviously don't like one of them worse. I wouldn't punch them because I believe that not only do they have free speech, but what they are saying is fine.
So the problem with that, what you're saying effectively, is that violence is okay as long as you get to be the arbiter of what statements are worth being said and which ones aren't.
No, I'm not. And here's why I'm not. I am the arbiter on whether or not I commit violence. I am not saying violence is okay.
Yeah, but
I'm
you
saying
can't.
violence is okay for me.
Okay, but you can't. You have to expand that then to say for each individual person, they should get to decide on whether or not, like, where their line is on what violence is okay.
But they decide already. And here's what I mean by that. I'm not saying I shouldn't be punished for it. I'm not saying that if I join this botnet and attack Russia, that I won't get arrested or
Sure.
charged with a crime or anything else like that. I'm not saying I shouldn't be punished. I'm saying that every person has a line. We talked about this yesterday. Every person has a line that they are okay with committing violence or committing a crime or breaking the law or whatever.
Yeah,
And no matter
I think
what we do, everybody has that line.
yeah, I think I'm sure there are people listening. My mom probably is the only one, but I'm sure there are people listening that are going to take what you're saying to mean more than what you're trying to say. And I think what you're trying to make, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a very practical utilitarian argument of not what should we do, what is
Right.
the right thing ethically or morally, but a very practical, this is what I'm going to do. And so I'm going to stand behind what I believe.
And
Is that fair?
What I think that's fair with one adjustment. It's not just what I'm going to do. I'm saying that we have to recognize that everybody is going to make that choice.
Sure.
They may not make the same choice I do, but every single person that finds this site and looks at this site and considers joining it, they are going to make that choice. And I hope that when they make that choice, they understand the ramifications of what they are doing. And they're not just making the choice of whatever it is, whether it's to not do it or to do it. And to be very clear, bluntly, I have not installed this, nor am I going to install this, right?
I'm tempted to install it just to find vulnerabilities in it.
That's a different conversation. But
It's a totally different conversation.
What I'm saying is people are going to make the choice.
Yeah.
And some of the people who make the choice are going to make the one that you don't like. Whatever you don't, is whoever you is.
Sure.
And that means, let's bring it back to security, right? You as a security person have to understand what you're going to do when you find that software running in your organization.
Yeah, to be prepared for it. Yeah, I don't know that I feel like you're, and I don't know that you're intending to be this. I feel like you're being a little dismissive of the value of, as a society, saying that's not okay, that's not acceptable. And I know you're not saying that we shouldn't do that, but it kind of almost comes across that.
I don't mean it that way.
I know, and that's let me finish. Yeah. I think there's value in recognizing from a prepared place that people are going to do what they're going to do. There's also value in saying, as a group, this is not okay, and this is our line. You may not agree with that line, but this is our line as a group.
I absolutely think we should have those lines, and we do have those lines. Let's be very clear. One of those lines is the CFAA.
Right.
And we can discuss whether that's good, bad, could be improved, whatever. That's not what I'm saying. It is a line. We may not like the line, or we may like the line. It is a line. We as a community, we as an organization, we as a country have made those rules and drawn those lines. What I'm saying is each individual is also going to determine whether they will follow the line. And because that exists, we should be prepared to know that's happening on our systems.
Sure, absolutely.
Right. You're right. I'm not trying to say those lines don't matter.
Yep.
So
awesome. Well, let's wrap it up. We went a little bit longer this time, but yeah, I think it was a great conversation.
Cool. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later.